The mornings tell the truth before our thoughts do. A thin band of light at the curtain, a pulse waking in the wrist, a mind already bargaining, already tired, already asking for an easier day. You know this dance, when motivation feels like a gust of warm air that never quite reaches the bones. You promise yourself you'll begin when you feel different. You promise you'll begin when the mood is right. And still, some part of you is asking a quieter, braver question. What if my best self isn't a mood at all? What if my best self is a way of moving, a way of choosing, a way of honoring simple duties, even when the weather in my head is changing by the minute? I'm not here to accuse you. I'm here to recognize you. You are intelligent. You are sensitive. You are someone who cares. That is why the inconsistency hurts. That is why the broken promises sting. Every time you intend to show up and don't, your nervous system feels the bruise. Every time you wait for motivation and it doesn't arrive, your self-trust thins, like paper exposed to rain. It's not because you're weak. It's because motivation is a visitor, polite, charming, and unreliable. Discipline is not a visitor, it is a house you build. A hallway you walk at the same hour, a lamp you switch on even when you would rather sit in the dark. There is a wisdom older than our restlessness, and it does not shout. It whispers from the fields and from the pages. Go to the ant, consider her ways, and be wise. The ant does not wait to feel inspired. She moves because the season asks for movement. She carries because the winter is real. And something in you recognizes that rhythm, that quiet courage, that unglamorous dignity of small, faithful steps. Small today, strong tomorrow. Small today, strong tomorrow. This is not romantic. It is truthful. It is also how your brain learns to trust you again. Think of the body as a choir. One voice sings of comfort, another of fear, another of possibility. Motivation is sometimes the soloist, bright and thrilling and brief. Discipline is the conductor. With a gentle hand and a steady pattern, it brings the voices together. Neuroscience gives language to this. The limbic system, seeking relief, the prefrontal cortex, holding a direction, dopamine, sparking urges, habits, wiring pathways like footpaths through grass. When you repeat a small, wise action at the same time each day, you are laying tracks. You are teaching your nervous system that safety lives in structure. You are pairing calm with movement, not as punishment, not as force, but as care. Care looks like this. You decide once, and then you protect that decision with a simple rule. You bless your future self by removing one temptation from the room. You place the shoes by the door. You set the page where your pen will meet it. You breathe, and then you begin. Not because your feelings are perfect, but because your values are clear. Feelings can come with you. They can complain, they can grumble, they can soften as the blood warms and the mind aligns. You do not need to silence your feelings to be faithful. You only need to guide them, gently but firmly, like a hand on a shoulder saying, "We're going this way now." There is a spiritual texture to this that you can feel in your chest. It's the sense that your life has a pattern underneath the noise. That pattern is not rigid, it is reverent. It says, above all, guard your heart, because gates matter. What you allow in will shape what grows. It says, to everything there is a season, because pace matters. What you press and when you rest determines what lasts. It says, where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint, because purpose matters. When you forget who you're becoming, every distraction looks like relief. You are not meant to live at the mercy of your moods. You are meant to live under the kindness of wise order. Order is not cold. Order is warm. Order is a blanket folded at the foot of the bed, waiting. Order is a kettle set the night before, so the morning carries you. Order is a calendar that holds you the way strong hands hold a ladder. With order, you can be gentle and still be exact. With order, you can feel deeply and still move forward. With order, you become the kind of person whose actions teach the heart how to feel again. Safe, steady, capable, not because life is easy, but because your rituals are faithful. And maybe you worry that this sounds like losing your freedom. Listen closer. The hardest days are not the days with boundaries. They are the days with none. Your mind runs, your energy fractures, your spirit frays, and at night you wonder where the hours went. Discipline is not a prison. It is a path. Paths do not trap us. They protect us from getting lost. When the path is wise, when it is aligned with what matters, each step is a quiet yes. Yes to your health. Yes to your craft. Yes to the people you love who benefit from your steadiness. Yes to the legacy that will someday speak your name with gratitude. So here, at the threshold of your day, feel your breath. Notice your shoulders. Let the jaw loosen. Let the heart unclench. You do not need to feel ready, you only need to be willing. Willing to take one small, honest action that belongs to the person you are becoming. Willing to honor a rule you chose with a clear mind. Willing to trust that obedience to wisdom shapes motivation, not the other way around. This is how you become your best self, not by chasing a spark, but by tending a flame, not by waiting for the wind to change, but by setting your sail and learning the wind that is already here. If there is a prayer today, let it be simple. Align my feelings with my values, and my steps with my vision. I will guard the gates. I will respect the seasons. I will keep watch over the small duties that build great strength. And as I keep them, they will keep me. Small today, strong tomorrow. And then, stronger still, there is a quiet moment when the body wakes but the heart resists. Breath draws in, light touches the wall, and the mind begins its slow negotiation with the day. You know this landscape of postponement, the soft promise that feeling will arrive and carry you forward like a warm current, yet it does not come when you call. In that gap between desire and movement, self-trust thins. Not because you lack strength, but because you were taught to wait for a mood that cannot bear the weight of your becoming. What if the path turns in the other direction? What if action is the first note and motivation is the echo that follows? The soul recognizes this reversal even before the intellect agrees. Each time you take a small step without asking permission from your feelings, a new line is written in your inner ledger. A different self-image gathers weight. You begin to believe what you repeatedly do. The science is simple and tender. The brain learns from evidence, not from intentions alone. When the feet move, when the hand writes, when the body enters the work, the nervous system records the truth of who you are in that moment. Repetition becomes proof. Proof becomes identity. Identity becomes ease. This is not about forcing yourself through a wall. This is about placing a hand on the door and walking through with kindness, again and again, until the hinges no longer creak. Old patterns whisper that willpower must surge before you begin, that a spark must appear, that a blessing of emotion must descend. It is a beautiful story and it keeps you waiting. A wiser story lives in the soil. Go to the ant and consider her ways. The ant does not ask the sky to lift her. She carries what she can carry and returns for more. Her small is not small at all. It is consistency in motion. It is preparation in plain clothes. The ant is not powered by thrill. She is powered by rhythm. When you move with such rhythm, not grand but faithful, you discover a steadiness that makes motivation almost shy by comparison. It still visits, but it no longer decides. There is tenderness in designing beginnings that are too easy to refuse. Promise yourself only the first inch. Promise yourself the first sentence, the first stretch, the first call, the first quiet minute with your tools. Make the start gentle enough that resistance has nothing to push against. Then let momentum carry you a little farther than you planned. Not much, just a little. Enough to leave a trace your brain can recognize tomorrow. You are not proving your worth. You are teaching your body a new association. Movement means safety. Movement means clarity. Movement means that your values, not your moods, hold the steering wheel. Identity grows from these traces. Say it softly until it feels true. I am the kind of person who shows up. I am the kind of person who keeps a small promise. I am the kind of person who begins before I am ready. There is power here because the words are backed by evidence. Each kept promise tightens the weave. Each kept promise widens the path under your feet. Soon, the question shifts. No longer do you ask whether you feel like it. You ask whether you will honor the person you are becoming. That shift is everything. It is the movement from performance to integrity, from a burst to a baseline, from chasing a feeling to creating a home for it to rest in when it arrives. Your brain is listening. It listens to the timing of your actions, to the pace of your breath, to the certainty in your hands. It listens when you start at the same hour, at the same table, with the same small ritual. The cues become a doorway. Step through and your focus follows. Step through and your energy learns the route. In time, even on heavy days, the ritual itself becomes a form of kindness. You do not wrestle with a decision for long. You simply enter the pattern that has carried you before. This is compassion, not control. You are lowering the friction to what is good for you. You are protecting the work from the weather of your mood. Some part of you might fear that this is harsh. It is not. It is a relief. Your feelings do not need to become silent in order for you to be faithful. They can walk beside you like children who do not always understand the road, but trust the one who leads them. You can be gentle and still be exact. You can be tender and still be consistent. You can carry sadness into the room and still write your page. You can carry worry into the room and still finish your set. You can carry boredom into the room and still tend the task that makes you whole. What matters is that you begin, and that you begin often enough for your life to recognize itself in the mirror. Ancient wisdom calls this diligence, a word that tastes like patience and resolve. It sounds like a soft command spoken by someone who loves you. Keep to the small, faithful steps, it says. Gather while the day allows. Prepare while the path is clear. Do not measure your worth by the size of a single harvest. Measure your truth by the care you bring to each row of the field. This way of living does not glitter, yet it shines. It shines in the way your mind quiets when you enter your routine. It shines in the way your sleep deepens because you honored your promise. It shines in the way your relationships soften because your steadiness makes them feel safe. There will still be days when the air is heavy and the mind drifts. On those days, shrink the task until it fits inside your breath. One line, one step, one gentle set. Let the act be so small that it cannot frighten you. Then carry it with the reverence of something sacred. Small today, strong tomorrow. This rhythm is not a slogan, it is a covenant you keep with yourself. It says that who you are is written in ink made from choices. It says that who you are becoming is already here, waiting for you in the smallest possible faithful act. If you listen, you can hear the new story forming. You are not a person who waits for perfect weather. You are a person who reads the sky and walks anyway. You are not a person who chases motivation like a bird. You are a person who builds a nest where motivation wants to land. This is how action becomes the author and motivation becomes the witness. This is how identity takes root. This is how the day opens. There is a quiet law beneath every habit you love and every habit that drains you. The law is friction. What stands in your way grows heavier. What waits in your hand grows light. Your day is shaped less by the strength of your will and more by the shape of your world. A phone within reach hums like a hive in the palm. A notebook already open hums in a softer key. The body goes where the path is smooth. The mind follows the path the body takes. When the room is arranged for your values, you need less courage to be yourself. When the room is arranged for distraction, you spend your courage on saying no before you have said a single yes. There is tenderness in admitting that willpower tires, not because you are careless, but because you are human. The brain asks for fewer decisions, not more, for fewer open doors, not a hallway that never ends. When everything is possible at once, peace cannot find a place to sit. You know the taste of that restlessness. You know the weight of the day that begins in a blur and ends in a fog. Yet there is another way, a way that respects your limits, by honoring your design. Make wise choices feel near. Make unwise choices feel far. Bring what matters into the light. Let what steals your strength live in the shade. This is not control, this is care. Ancient wisdom speaks softly and carries a key. Above all, guard your heart. The heart is a city. Thought is a gate. Attention is a watchman. What you let in will build houses inside you. What you keep out will lose its voice. City gates do not hate the world. They simply decide what helps the people thrive. Imagine your morning like a walled town at dawn. Lanterns lit, streets swept. One gate opens to the field where your craft waits. Another gate stays closed while the merchants of distraction rattle their carts. This is not punishment. This is protection. Protection of your breath. Protection of your focus. Protection of the small flame that keeps your purpose warm. You may begin to notice how tiny adjustments change the weather of your mind. A desk with only the tools you use. A chair turned toward a window that calms you. A glass of water placed where your hand will meet it before your thoughts can wander. The book you mean to read, living on top of the distraction that pulls you away. The work device that only does work, resting in a different space from the device that invites idle wandering. The difference is not glamorous, yet it is holy. Each small shift lowers the hill you climb. Each small shift turns a fight into a flow. You are not making life harder. You are making goodness easy to reach. There is a kindness in sequencing your moments so they help one another. Tea steam means it is time to write. Quiet music means it is time to focus. A cleared kitchen sink means the evening is finding its peace. These are not rules thrown like chains. These are cues laid like stepping stones. The body learns these paths with relief. The nervous system recognizes the pattern and loosens its shoulders. You begin to feel that steadiness that once seemed reserved for other people. It is not reserved, it is built. It is built in the way a doorway is built, not by argument, but by arrangement. Distraction often wins by being closer, louder, brighter. Wisdom can answer by being closer still. The message that matters waits at the top of the screen rather than buried in a maze. The file you need opens in a breath rather than hiding behind a dozen clicks. The walk you promise yourself begins where your shoes already wait. When goodness is 2 steps away and escape is 20, your future self quietly starts to win. This is not a war against pleasure. It is a welcome for deeper pleasure, the kind that lingers because it is tied to meaning. Some fear that this attention to gates will make life small. The opposite is true. When your gates are wise, life broadens. You have more energy for laughter because you spent less energy on resisting. You have more space for tenderness because you spent less space on noise. You taste your food, you feel the evening air, you hear the person you love finish a sentence, and you are truly there. The order outside you protects the softness inside you, and the softness inside you begins to protect the order outside you. A circle forms, gentle and strong, strong and gentle. The season you are in will ask for its own arrangement. On days of deep work, the world needs to feel far for a while. On days of recovery, the world can come closer and rest beside you. You are allowed to vary the gate without abandoning the wall. Wisdom is not rigid. Wisdom is rhythmic. It honors the hour and the body and the task. It closes what must be closed so that what must open can open fully. There is a mercy in living this way. Decisions are lighter. Transitions are cleaner. You will feel the difference in the way your shoulders are set when you cross a threshold and know why the threshold exists. If a single thought were to guide this chapter, let it move through you like breath. Make it easy to honor what matters most. Say it again until it becomes part of your posture. Make it easy to honor what matters most. Arrange your world so your values are within reach. Arrange your world so your peace can find you. Arrange your world so your days do not begin by fighting a river. Let the river flow toward your purpose instead. Guard your heart as if it were a garden after rain. Not with fear, with care. Choose the seeds. Tend the soil. Set the fence that keeps the tender things safe while they learn to stand. And when the fruit appears, it will not surprise you. You will know exactly how it grew. It grew because you shaped the ground to welcome it. It grew because you opened the right gate and closed the wrong one. It grew because you chose a life where the right thing is the easy thing and the easy thing is true. Some days the heart feels like an open field with no fences, and every path looks tempting at once. You begin everywhere and finish nowhere, and by night your spirit is scattered. The ache is not from laziness. The ache comes from living without a clear shape around your energy. Rules can sound harsh to a tender soul, yet the right rules are not chains. The right rules are shelter. The right rules are the warm frame of a house that keeps the wind from stealing your heat. When your life has a loving frame, you stop leaking strength. You stop apologizing to yourself. You start to rest into a rhythm that carries you rather than a swirl that confuses you. There is a line of wisdom that feels like a hand on your shoulder. Where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. Vision is not a slogan. Vision is a felt picture of who you are becoming and why it matters. When that picture is dim, boundaries feel like punishment because you cannot taste their purpose. When that picture is vivid, boundaries feel like devotion because you can feel how they protect what you cherish. With vision, restraint is not a cage. With vision, restraint becomes a vow. You do not shrink your life. You direct it. You do not silence your feelings. You guide them toward a horizon that is worthy of their fire. The body believes what the calendar repeats. A wise rule of life begins small and kind. It begins with a handful of promises to yourself that do not wobble when the weather changes. Sleep has its window, and the night honors it. Deep work has its shelter, and the morning guards it. Movement has its season inside each day, and the blood rejoices when you keep that season. When these anchors hold, the rest of the day relaxes around them. Your nervous system senses predictability and begins to exhale. The mind stops wasting energy on constant negotiation, and that saved energy becomes presence, focus, and calm. There is a quiet beauty in pre-commitment. You decide once while you are clear and rested, and then you let that decision serve you when you are tired and uncertain. It is a compassionate shortcut that spares you from 100 small battles. The brain loves cues that tell it what comes next. When the clock reaches a familiar hour and the same doorway opens, your attention flows with less effort. This is not rigidity. This is mercy. You are removing decision fatigue before it gnaws at your resolve. You are choosing peace over friction. You are letting your future self be cared for by the wisdom of your present self. In tender moments, the heart still asks for guidance and grace. If the morning fog lingers, set a gentle script in your mind, a simple if and then that does not argue. If the mind drifts, then breathe and return to the next small step inside the rule you already chose. If the mood protests, then place a hand on the table and begin with the easiest movement that signals you are here. There is no self-attack in this, only a soft return, only a steady honoring. The more you practice these returns, the more your inner weather remembers that it does not control your compass. The compass faces truth. The compass faces vision. Many people fear that rules will make life joyless. True rules are not about denial. True rules are about devotion. They create freedom because they remove noise. They create freedom because they protect time for what makes you alive. Think of a musician who knows the scale so well that her hands can play with soul. Think of a dancer who trusts the steps so deeply that his body can fly inside them. The form does not kill expression. The form releases it. In the same way, your rule of life releases you into deeper joy because it holds the space where joy can grow. Let the image of a king's decree settle in your chest, not a tyrant, a wise ruler who loves his people and understands the weight of his word. Your calendar is such a decree. When you write a line on it with a clear mind and a humble heart, treat that line as law in your small kingdom. Not because you are being hard on yourself, but because your integrity is a living thing that needs a home. Each time you keep the decree, your self-trust thickens like rope, braided strand by strand. Each time you break it without cause, the rope thins and the day drifts. Keep the rope strong. Keep your word warm. Keep your kingdom in order so your soul can be at ease within it. This way of living does not ignore emotion. It welcomes emotion into a structure that can hold it. On bright days, the structure keeps you from scattering your gifts. On heavy days, the structure keeps you from losing your way. You stop measuring yourself by outcomes alone and begin to measure yourself by fidelity to the rule you chose with wisdom. You begin to experience a rare kind of confidence, the quiet confidence of someone who knows where their hours go and why they go there. The face softens. The breath deepens. The work is not easier, but the struggle is less cruel. In time, the rule of life becomes an act of love you offer to everyone who depends on your steadiness, including the younger version of you who prayed for clarity, and the older version of you who will bless your name for the order you kept. You learn to say yes at the right times and no at the right times, and your body thanks you in sleep and in focus and in the way you enter a room with presence. Freedom grows in the garden of wise boundaries. Freedom blooms when you honor the windows that guard your rest, the shelters that guard your craft, and the rhythms that guard your strength. Let the closing whisper of this chapter be simple and sure. Vision first, and then restraint that flows from it. Love first, and then limits that protect it. Choose a form gentle enough to sustain a lifetime and strong enough to hold you when storms rise. Your royal rule of life is not a sentence. It is a sanctuary. Inside that sanctuary, you will find not less of yourself but more. There are days when your body asks for a gentler sky, and you feel guilty for listening, as if permission to breathe must be earned with exhaustion. The world has taught you to admire the ceaseless hum, to treat stillness as a flaw, to call rest a luxury for later. Yet deep in your chest, another truth keeps knocking. You are not a machine that can be optimized without end. You are a field with weather and soil and time, a field that knows how to heal when the hands that tend it honor the seasons that make life possible. Ancient wisdom speaks in the language of crops and clouds, and it does not rush. To everything there is a season. There is a time to press and a time to pause, a time to sow and a time to gather, a time to labor and a time to let the ground lie quiet. When you live by this rhythm, your effort gains gravity because it is placed where it belongs. When you ignore it, even your wins feel thin, because the soul keeps score in ways the calendar cannot see. You know the feeling of moving fast while getting further from yourself. You also know the relief of a pace that matches the work and the hour and the heart that must hold both. Your nervous system understands rhythm long before your schedule does. Focus rises like a tide and ebbs like a tide, asking for movement and then asking for release. When you ride these waves with respect, attention gathers itself and then recovers itself, the way the lungs draw in and let go, the way a bell rings and then returns to quiet. Long stretches of intensity without pockets of ease do not make you stronger. They fray the very fibers that carry your talent. When you interlace depth with rest, the brain knits learning, the body settles inflammation, and the heart remembers that joy is not noise, but resonance. Picture the farmer who wakes with the dawn and reads the light with patient eyes. On certain mornings, the soil is eager to be turned and the rows open like sentences wanting to be written. On other mornings, the rain speaks a softer plan, and the wisest choice is to let the water do its work. The farmer is not lazy on those days. The farmer is loyal to reality. That loyalty is not passivity, it is mastery. You too can become loyal to the truth of your conditions without surrendering your calling. You can let the day tell you whether it asks for deep work or careful recovery, for a longer reach or a quieter watch, and neither answer makes you less serious about your life. Rest has been misnamed as a prize given to the worthy after they have wrung themselves dry. Rest is not a prize. Rest is a practice. It is the discipline that keeps your disciplines humane. It is the roof that protects all the rooms. When you decide that restoration is part of the work and not an escape from it, something inside unclenches. The shame that used to ride on your shoulders when you paused becomes a blessing that settles on your spine. You begin to notice how clarity returns when you allow the mind to cool, how courage returns when you allow the body to loosen, how kindness returns when you give your spirit a little open sky. There is a music to sustainable excellence, and you can hear it if you close your eyes. It sounds like focused silence, followed by a step back and a sip of water. It sounds like a page filled with honest effort, and then a window opened to let the air turn. It sounds like evenings that end cleanly, so sleep can gather you back into itself, and mornings that begin with intention rather than apology. These modest choices are not decoration. They are structure. They are what allows your days to stack without collapsing, your gifts to stretch without tearing, your relationships to feel your presence rather than your leftovers. Modern language would call this cycling, waves of effort followed by intact recovery, and the body recognizes it as mercy. Attention has a span, and when you protect that span instead of resenting it, your work deepens. Energy has a cadence, and when you lean into that cadence instead of denying it, your strength accumulates quietly at the core. Creativity has seasons of gathering and seasons of expression, and when you allow both, ideas ripen instead of being ripped from the vine too soon. This is not softness that weakens you. This is softness that makes you strong. Some people worry that honoring seasons will make them fall behind, but there is a hidden cost in refusing recovery. Without rhythm, the mind clings and clutches, the breath shortens, the gaze narrows, and your decisions grow brittle. With rhythm, the gaze widens again. You notice the next right move instead of forcing a grand gesture. You become capable of doing difficult things without becoming hard inside. The outside may still be demanding, but the inside is not a battlefield. It is a sanctuary with doors that open and close at the proper hours. Let there be a day each week when the noise dims and your hands put the glowing screens away like dishes after a meal. Let there be quiet hours when your attention is not for sale and you meet yourself without interruption. Let there be small interludes inside your working blocks when you rise and stretch and let your eyes touch a horizon farther than the wall. Let there be seasons on the calendar when you prune commitments so the roots of your life can drink. None of this is an indulgence. It is fidelity to the long road you claim to love. When you practice rhythm, your identity grows sturdier because it is no longer tied to constant output. You are not only the harvest, you are the hands that care for the field in every weather. You are the wisdom that knows when to press and when to pause. You are the humility that accepts human limits, not as a sentence, but as a design that protects what is sacred. The steadiness you once tried to force through sheer intensity begins to appear on its own because you are no longer tearing down what you built the day before. Carry this truth into your next breath. The strength you seek is not hiding in an endless push. It is woven into a measured pace that gives your best effort a place to rest. It is written into the old promise that everything has its hour. When you keep faith with that promise, the work you offer is deeper, the love you offer is kinder, and the life you are building begins to feel like it fits the shape of your soul. There is a quiet fatigue that arrives when your worth leans on outcomes you cannot command. The numbers that refuse to move, the applause that comes late or not at all, the harvest that disappoints despite honest labor. Your chest tightens, your focus flickers, and the story in your head grows loud and unkind. Yet beneath the noise, a wiser voice keeps returning. Measure what is within your hands. Bless what is within your reach. Let your peace rest on faithful inputs rather than elusive results. When you live this way, discouragement loosens its grip because your dignity no longer waits for permission to breathe. The nervous system understands fairness. When effort and reward drift too far apart, the body protests with tension and the mind floods with doubt. Process metrics bring fairness back to the table. They tell the truth about presence and practice. They calm the limbic fire that shouts for quick proof, and they invite the prefrontal steadiness that keeps a promise through ordinary days. Each time you count a controllable act, the brain receives a signal of agency. Agency brings down the shoulders. Agency steadies the breath. Agency replaces the helpless swirl with a grounded path across the room you already occupy. Imagine a modest page you turn to at week's end, a vineyard ledger that prefers care to spectacle. On that page live a handful of living dials. How often you showed up when you said you would. How much deep work time received your full attention. How kindly you treated your sleep so that tomorrow could trust you. How consistently your body moved in ways that keep the flame bright. How many tempting tempting interruptions you saw and gently let pass. These are not trophies, these are proofs of tending. They reveal whether the roots were watered even if the fruit has not ripened yet. The proverb whispers and the words settle like sun on leaves. The hand of the diligent makes rich, rich in integrity, rich in readiness, rich in the quiet confidence that grows when you take care of what you can take care of. You may feel resistance to counting, as if numbers were cold, or as if tracking steals the poetry from your life. The opposite often happens. When you honor the small, honest measures, the poetry returns because guilt leaves the room. You do not need to inflate your story. You do not need to minimize your progress. The page knows, the page remembers. It holds the gentle truth that you were there on the days no one was watching. It holds the gentle truth that you rested without apology when rest was part of the work. In this way, the ledger does not judge. It shepherds. It guides attention back to the few actions that build you from the inside out. Think of progress not as leaps, but as quiet upgrades so small they barely make a sound. 1% is the kind of change that almost hides itself. A slightly earlier lights out, a few more minutes of uninterrupted focus. A walk that stretches a little farther along the familiar street. A single layer of distraction removed from the tool you use the most. These tiny refinements are humble, and that humility is their power. The brain accepts them without a fight. The body receives them without dread. Over weeks, they gather into a slope you can feel under your feet, a slope that tilts gently toward who you are becoming. There is a rhythm to reflection that keeps the heart soft and the judgment clear. At the close of the week, meet your ledger the way you would meet a friend who tells you the truth with kindness. Trace the patterns with patient eyes. Where did your presence shine? Where did it flicker? Where did rest do its hidden work of repair? Where did noise reclaim more space than it deserves? Ask without accusation, answer without drama. Then choose one small upgrade that makes next week kinder to your purpose. Not 5 changes at once. One simple hinge that makes the door swing more easily in the right direction. Care counted becomes clarity. Say it again until it settles. Care counted becomes clarity. The soul often confuses excellence with control over the future. Wisdom frees you from that burden. Wisdom says excellence is faithfulness to the task at hand and stewardship over the conditions that help the task bloom. When you measure what you can honor today, tomorrow loses some of its power to frighten you. You cannot command the harvest. You can command the watering, the weeding, the tending of the soil where roots take hold. The ledger becomes a prayer in the language of action. I was here. I gave what I could. I protected the foundations of my strength. Emotional storms still come. On certain days, the page may show fewer marks, fewer minutes, fewer gentle refusals of distraction. This is not failure. This is weather. A wise ledger records context with compassion. The body was healing. The heart was heavy. The season was intense. The truth is still the truth. You are not your best week, and you are not your worst week. You are the pattern you are willing to repeat with love. When the storm passes and the sky brightens, the same dials await your hand. They do not scold. They simply invite. Begin where you are. Return to what is yours. Over time, this way of seeing reshapes identity. You stop calling yourself inconsistent when the ledger shows otherwise. You stop calling yourself lazy when the ledger reveals steady effort beneath noisy outcomes. You stop trading your self-respect for temporary wins that do not last. The page trains the mind to celebrate fidelity, and fidelity trains motivation to return like a bird that trusts the hand that feeds it. Slowly, the inner climate shifts. You become less reactive, more rooted, less frantic, more focused, less hungry for approval, more nourished by alignment. Let the closing image be simple. A quiet table, evening light, the ledger open like a small field waiting for seeds. You write your marks with unhurried honesty. You offer a brief smile to the line that was hard to earn. You offer gentle understanding to the line that fell short. You choose one small upgrade for the week ahead and feel how the body agrees. No rush, no drama, only the softness that comes when truth and kindness share the same page. Track the tending. not just the harvest. Track the tending until the harvest becomes the natural echo of how you live. Small today, strong tomorrow, and then stronger still. There is a kind of kindness you can offer yourself each day that is small enough to keep and strong enough to change the weather inside you. This practice is not loud. It does not demand grand gestures. It asks for a few quiet minutes, a few honest acts, and a single choice that protects your attention like a doorway guards a home. When you return to it day after day, your life begins to arrange itself around steadiness, not by force, by fidelity, not by hype, by humility. It becomes a sanctuary you carry with you, a soft structure that lets you be human and still be true. The practice begins with identity in simple ink. For a handful of minutes, you let the page hear the person you are becoming. The language is ordinary and powerful. I am the kind of person who shows up. I am the kind of person who guards my focus. I'm the kind of person who keeps small promises. As these lines gather, the mind receives evidence that is gentle and convincing. The limbic noise that craves novelty loosens. The prefrontal steadiness that holds a direction strengthens, and the nervous system pairs calm with movement. This is not performance. This is remembering. You are reminding your body who is in the room when you choose with wisdom. After this, the practice moves from page to motion. You select a small trio of actions that belong to today and fit inside your current strength. They are not chosen to impress a stranger. They are chosen to respect your path. Each one is narrow and clear. Each one can be done without drama. Each one is completed in the light of the same day, so your brain links intention to follow through while the memory is still warm. In this way, momentum stops being a hope and becomes a pattern. Your identity and your behavior begin to speak the same language, and trust grows the way a vine grows, along a steady trellis. The third movement is a gait tended with care. You look at the path your attention walks most often, and you change the ground slightly, so wisdom is nearer than distraction. One distraction is removed from arm's reach. One cue that supports your values is moved into the hand. The phone sleeps in another room, while your craft is awake. The kettle sits near the notebook that steadies your thoughts. The app that swallows your time asks for an extra step before it opens, while the tool that builds your future is ready in a breath. This is the city gate of the heart made practical. It is not about denial. It is about devotion to what keeps you whole. Something tender happens in the brain when these three threads are woven together. Identity journaling primes the map of who you are becoming. The small acts supply proof that the map is real, and the tended gate lowers the friction so tomorrow can repeat today's faithfulness with less effort. Dopamine is no longer chasing every bright object. It begins to attach to the rituals that align with your values. Safety and focus start to travel together, and the body learns that your schedule is a place where it can relax instead of brace. Emotional storms still pass through, yet they pass through a house with walls, and the flame remains. Imagine a quiet morning where the light is pale and patient. Your hand meets the page, and the words arrive like footsteps on a familiar path. You rise and tend a small task that matters, then a second, then a third, each one a thread that ties today to the person you are becoming. A single gate is adjusted, and the room changes tone. You feel the subtle rightness of an environment that cooperates with your purpose. There is no fanfare, there is peace. The hours that follow inherit that peace, not because life is simple, but because your practice is. Over weeks, this devotion gathers weight. You notice that the voice inside you is less doubtful because it has less reason to doubt. You notice that motivation visits more often because it finds a warm place to land. You notice that rest feels cleaner because you did not abandon yourself in the name of comfort. The practice becomes a way of blessing your future self in the language of small loyalty. It blesses your craft. It blesses your relationships. It blesses the quiet center of you that once felt fragile and now feels rooted. Let the memory of this rhythm settle into your bones. a few minutes to name who you are, a few actions to prove it while the day is young, a single gate that keeps your strength from leaking away. This is how you turn wisdom into muscle and muscle into mercy. This is how a life grows that does not depend on perfect weather. Gentle steps, honest evidence, protected focus. Small today, strong tomorrow, and then stronger still. A pattern has been forming like threads pulled through the same cloth until an image appears. The first thread is the move from mood to identity, the gentle reversal that places action before feeling, so that motivation becomes an echo rather than a gatekeeper. Each small step lays evidence on the table, and evidence grows into self-respect, and self-respect grows into ease. The second thread is the room you live inside, the gates you keep, the way nearness and distance shape what you become. When the world around you is arranged to favor truth, the world within you stops spending all its strength resisting what does not help. These two threads meet a third, the royal rule that gives your days a loving frame. Vision clarifies devotion, and devoted boundaries become a shelter rather than a cage. Sleep has its window and the body thanks you. Deep work has its shelter and the mind thanks you. Movement has its hour and the spirit thanks you. With this frame in place, you no longer chase yourself through the day. You simply arrive where you said you would be, and the nervous system learns to trust the clock again. The result is not rigidity. The result is relief. Then comes rhythm, the ancient mercy of seasons that dignifies both pressing and pausing. Effort deepens when recovery is honored. Learning knits together when quiet is allowed to do its quiet work. Joy returns not as a spike of novelty, but as resonance that hums under the skin. You recognize yourself in the pace you keep, and the pace you keep begins to protect the person you are becoming. What once felt like a battle against limitation becomes a friendship with design. Finally, there is the ledger, the vineyard page that counts care rather than applause. Process metrics turn attention toward what your hands can bless today. Agency returns to the body. Calm returns to the breath. The story you tell yourself becomes kinder because it is grounded in tangible fidelity. You are not guessing who you are remembering, and the page helps you remember with clarity that does not wound. Together, these elements form one living system. Action writes identity. Environment lowers friction. Boundaries hold the day. Seasons keep the flame humane. Metrics reveal the truth of your tending. Each part strengthens the others. When friction drops, starting is easier. And when starting is easier, the ledger fills with steady marks. When the ledger fills, identity settles, and a settled identity chooses boundaries with less strain. When boundaries hold, rhythm becomes possible. And when rhythm is honored, action has the energy to remain faithful. The circle turns without grinding. There is both spirit and science woven through it all. The old wisdom whispers of ants and gates and seasons and diligent hands. The new language speaks of attention and dopamine and nervous systems that pair safety with routine. They are not at odds. They bow to the same truth. Human beings flourish when small, faithful steps repeat inside kind structures. Human beings suffer when life asks them to reinvent themselves every morning. In this light, discipline stops feeling like a verdict and begins to feel like devotion. The heart softens as the pattern takes root. You notice fewer negotiations with yourself because your life already decided. You notice more presence because fewer decisions are left open to the wind. You notice that rest is clean and work is honest, and relationships feel steadier around you, as if your calm were a chair someone can sit in without asking permission. This is not a sudden transformation. It is the slow glow that comes from keeping your word until your word keeps you. If you listen closely, the 5 voices of this system begin to sing the same refrain. Small today and strong tomorrow. Identity guided by action. Peace protected by gates. Freedom held by loving limits. Excellence paced by seasons. Progress counted where your hands can actually touch the day. The refrain repeats until the nervous system learns its melody and begins to join it without being asked. Hold this picture in your chest. A field tended, a city with wise gates, A calendar that acts like a promise. A season that knows how to renew what it asks you to spend. A ledger that remembers care. This is one way of saying the same simple thing. Live by wisdom instead of weather. Honor the small. Honor the steady. Honor the design that lets you be human and still become whole. There is a hush that arrives when truth gathers itself in the room. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It feels like a window opened in the mind and a warm current finding its way across the skin. You have walked through ideas and practices and images that hold. Now the pieces sit together like stones in a circle around a small, steady fire. This quiet is a kind of clarity. It is the feeling of finally standing inside a story that fits. You have seen how action can lead feeling, how rooms can bless the person you are becoming, how loving limits hold a life together, how seasons protect the flame, how careful measures honor the work of your hands. None of this is far from reach. It is close. It lives in the simple atmosphere of your next hour. It lives in the way you treat your attention as something sacred. It lives in the way you let wisdom decide and the weather follow. There is a tenderness in admitting that change is often smaller and kinder than we were taught. The soul does not need a storm. It needs a rhythm. It needs a place to stand. It needs proof that your word is a home where it can rest. The body listens when you repeat faithful steps. The mind softens when it recognizes a pattern that will hold. The heart opens when it feels safe inside that pattern. Slowly, without spectacle, you become the person your best days have been trying to introduce you to. Old stories may still whisper. They will say that you must wait for a perfect mood or a perfect moment. They will say that discipline is a cold thing. They will say that limits shrink a life and rest is for later. Let those voices pass like distant weather on the horizon. You have met another story now. It is older and kinder. It is made of ants and gates and seasons and diligent hands. It comes without threat. It comes without shame. It comes with the soft authority of reality itself. There is a sacredness to small fidelity that the modern world overlooks. The world praises the harvest and forgets the watering. The world praises the finish line and forgets the dawn. Yet your nervous system knows the truth. It knows the heat of a steady lamp. It knows the safety of routine. It knows the sound of pages turning in order. When you live in agreement with that truth, something inside you stops bracing. Presence returns. Mercy returns. Strength returns in a shape you can live with. If you could step outside your years and listen to your future speak, you might hear a voice that carries both affection and weight. It would not rush you. It would not scold you. It would thank you for choosing structure that kept your softness alive. It would thank you for guarding the gates that protect your attention. It would thank you for honoring seasons that made your excellence human. It would thank you for counting the care you gave when no one was watching. It would call you by your name, and you would feel how loved that name can be when you carry it with integrity. Let the room be still for a breath, and let this line settle where it needs to settle. If my future legacy spoke today, which tiny duty would it ask me to honor? Hold the question the way you would hold a fragile cup filled to the brim. Feel how it warms your hands. Feel how it steadies your gaze. Somewhere close by, the answer is already forming. It will be small. It will be clear. It will be yours. The room has grown quieter, as if the walls themselves understand that something tender has been placed here and should not be hurried. You have walked through rhythms that respect your nature and truths that do not bruise your hope. The air feels a little warmer. The mind feels a little wider. The body carries a steadier pulse, like a lamp that has learned how to shine without straining. This is the feeling of alignment settling in, not as a moment to chase, but as a way of being that can find you again and again. There is a grace that lingers when wisdom has been spoken without threat. It sounds like the faint rustle of leaves in the evening. It feels like a hand resting on the table, unafraid. You can sense the shape of a life that honors small fidelity and generous boundaries, a life that bows to the ancient rhythm of seasons and keeps a simple ledger of care. Nothing grand needs to happen now. The grandness is in the gentleness. The dignity is in the steadiness that will travel with you when the lights dim and the screen goes dark. The old voices that demanded spectacle will still try to visit, but they feel farther away in this light. Nearer is the truth that presence is enough, that quiet effort compounds, that gates protect what matters, that rest holds up the roof, that your worth is not for sale. Nearer is the certainty that a life can be built from small devotion without losing its joy. Nearer is the kindness that lets you remain human while you become whole. If a blessing could take the shape of a closing line, let it be this simple. May your steps be faithful and unforced. May your rooms be arranged to welcome peace. May your limits keep you safe, and your seasons keep you strong. May your measures be honest and gentle, so your heart can trust you. And when the night folds around you like a quiet cloak, may you feel the warmth of a promise kept. And may that warmth carry you into tomorrow with soft resolve. The fire in the circle is steady. The stones are warm. The path you have named does not vanish when the music fades. It lives in the next breath, and the next, and the next, like a low tide drawing the shoreline into a calmer shape. Let the screen dim as a final kindness. Let the room rest. Somewhere inside, a wiser rhythm has already begun to hum, and it will know how to find you when morning returns.